running containers, they can use this tool in a go. It comes with a web runtime and web web application and a fully functional cloud command line application. Yep. And oops, sorry for that. Let me just, yeah. So it has capabilities of working with Kubernetes cluster and other Swarm clusters, because at the end of the day, these clusters run the Docker containers because they are just running the container runtimes as Docker. So yes, it is capable of Kubernetes cluster and Swarm cluster testing as well. But yes, the only concern that is had is the container runtime should be Docker. It should not be any other container runtime with any Swarm cluster or Kubernetes cluster. It is a similar but powerful than what exists in market, which is Docker Bench. And I'll talk about the comparison in the next slide. So if you see, this is the only running, only open source runtime security scanning tool for Dockers in the market available right now. I have worked with a couple of static scanners. Yeah, static scanners work good. They're really competitive static scanners exist in the market, but runtime scanners, no. So this is the only one which exists in the market, and I hope to take it to the next level, so that yes, community can take leverage out of it. So yeah, so that's a very basic introduction about the tool. Now let's start to compare this tool with the existing host scanning or the configuration scanning tool, which is Docker Bench. I have a very minimal minimal point of differences between these two, and what sort of checks which are there in particular in my particular tool, which can help you, which are actually different from existing scenarios. So yeah, so one side I'll put the point for the DockerENT and Docker Bench. So if you see, DockerENT is more of a runtime configuration check, whereas the Docker Bench can perform the CIS level benchmark checks. Now, CIS level benchmark checks include host-based checks, container-based checks, the host configuration-based check, and the container configuration-based checks. But DockerENT basically focuses on the runtime configurations only. It can perform the checks for the running containers, whereas the Docker Bench can also perform the checks for the container environments, which is not there in the case of Ent. Overlapping scan set is there definitely, but one main thing where DockerEnt stands out of Docker Bench is that it can go inside the running container, perform the commands, perform some analysis after going inside the running container without interrupting any application functionality at all, and get the result back to you. So this is where the DockerEnt comes shiny. And the other side, the DockerEnt comes shiny, is that it is really customizable, and you don't have to worry about the logging part. You don't have to worry about the auditing part. The way it has been written completely simplifies the entire experience of writing plugins for you. So if you see, if I just draw a Venn diagram of how Ent and Bench compare with each other, you will see that Ent more focuses on the internal container internal level checks as well, and Bench focuses more onto the host level hardening checks. This is where the point of differences exist. But there is the overlap that exists, and the overlap is for identification of runtime configuration checks, which exists in Bench as well, but it is not extensive in Bench in case of Bench. So yeah, this is where the the points exist for the differences. Yes. As I mentioned in my previous slide, that Docker Bench has been designed keeping in mind the simplicity and the usability. So if you see a normal DevOps person or DevSecOps person or any stakeholder who is leading your particular organization in security terms, they will not have the idea of how you can run this particular tool, right? So it will be very tricky for them to learn the ring. So this has been designed keeping in mind the way you can simplify the running or installing part of it. So if you see, the Docker End comes as a package with pip, and if you just want to use it quickly without any setup, you can simply install it through pip install Docker End, and then that's it. It will install the dependencies along with, and Docker End -w will spin up a web application for you. And as soon as the web application will be spin up, the GUI has been written in a very simple. It's very simple. I'll show that to you. If you're stuck anywhere, just type docker and minus help. You will be able to get the help out of it. And if you're curious, if you want to work on the nightly builds, the latest plugins which are not packaged yet, you can build it from the source. building, sorry, it's a Python package, there is no need to build. So you can run it from the source. Running it from source is extremely easy. Again, you just have to clone this particular repository. I have incorporated dependencies and virtual environment making process in the make file itself. So you just have to run make deps and make venv. Once that is up, activate the virtual environment and run Python run DockerENT as a Python module. So it's very easy. It's like Python minus m DockerENT minus l. So it will give you the help and how to use that particular tool. And if you want to use it as a web application from the source, you can simply use Python minus m docker and minus w. The web application is designed through Streamlit. So Streamlits comes handy when you have a Python class, when you can write your own Python class, and those Python classes will be rendered as web applications. Because I'm not at all into web application development, I don't know how to develop a front end. I'm not very much good at that. So that's why I leverage the concept of what Streamlits offer. So the web application, so the web front end is very simple, and it has been designed with the help of Streamlit. Okay, so now let's talk about the tooling part of it. So in the tooling part, when I say, as I mentioned in my previous slide, that when I talk about it as a tool, it comes, you can think of it as a framework which has some sort of plugins plugged into it, and then you constitute a tool out of it. So yes, the plugins that I have here, the list of the latest plugins you can find in the particular link, but the plugins that are incorporated or packaged right now in DockerENT are these plugins. So this is a table of all the data. So if you can see, there is a command history, file system info, network information, plain text password identifications, security profile plugins. These are the file pointers. Like if you want to go inside the particular plugin file, you can click on this file and then you can go into that. And yeah, these are the features provided by the plugin. And on the right hand side, if you see, there is an audit column. Audit column says that what audit result that particular plugin performs or gives. If you see a no audit written there, it means that there is no auditing available for that particular plugin. And if you see a blank, it means the same. So I'll talk about few of the plugins here, because that actually helps you understand this particular tool a bit. So let's talk about command history. So the essence of command history, the essence of writing this particular plugin came into my mind when I was actually testing a container. And in the container, by mistake, I saw that few of the developers have left few command history as root, and that command history, they were using credentials to connect to MySQL inline, and they were using credentials to connect through proxy. So those things were already there. So this gave me a clue that there should be some sort of plugin which can help you identify, because they're actually leaking your credentials out in wild. So yeah, that is the possibility. It's if your application is compromised inside a Docker, the compromised application will have access to the command history, and then since it will have access to command history, it will be able to get the credentials which are stored as history or like history files or all those things. So that's why I thought of writing this plugin out. It is very simple. It will just go into inside the Docker and see if there is a history file present. Has the history file been modified or not? How the history file has been modified? What is the trend of history file being growing and something like that? And then it will identify the history file for root, the current user, and all the user which exists in the system. And if there is a history command present, or the command in the history file present, it will just log that particular out in the audit, something like that. So yeah, this is how the command history works. I'll talk about one more plugin, which is security profiles. So security profiles actually identifies if your container is running as a privileged container, or if there is any security SE Linux policy being present, or app armor profile being set on the application which is running inside the container. So if it is the case, it will say the container and the runtime environment is happy. If it is not the case, it will say that, oh, your container is not having that issue. Its container is not having that security profiles enabled. So please go ahead and secure it. And this plugin has been derived and from the Docker bench. And this has been completely picked up from the Docker bench. The way Docker bench perform the container runtime security profiles checks, it has been same incorporated in the security profiles in DockerENT. So yeah, this is the plugin which also indicates that there is an overlap between DockerENT and Docker Bench. So yeah, these are the set of plugins which are there, and yeah, that is you can take some time to see these are the plugins which are there, and how you can leverage those plugin out to your custom needs. Yeah. Now I'll talk about very much specific details how you can write your own plugins, and this will also cover how I have written those plugins out. So since the framework has been written in Python, Python provides Docker API SDK. I have leveraged that SDK to get the configurations, the host configurations for Docker and the internal data of that particular Docker, and then analyzing if that data is secure or not. So yeah, I'm using the Python SDK, and you can take the reference of any of the existing plugins to see how you can write your own custom plugin. But I'll try to give a very short overview and introduction how you can do that. So this is how a plugin looks like. It starts with a very simple private variable. So in Python, there is no such concept as Python private variable, but you can write start a variable name with underscore, and it indicates that it's a private variable. So it starts with a private variable called plugin name, and then you can write your own plugin name. So I have for this demonstration, I have used it as demo plugin, and then every plugin will have a function, and the signature of the function should be the same. In Python, I cannot enforce the signature of function through inheritance or any other concepts like that. But yeah, if you have to leverage the framework, you will have to write the plugin in this particular signature, and you don't have to worry about the data types at all. That's the beauty of Python. So yeah, it should have a scan plugin. It should take a container instance on which it will perform the scan on. It will take the output queue and will put the data into that particular output queue. It will see that is that plugin will that plugin perform audit or not? And if it will perform audit, in case the audit is set to true, then it will need to take the audit output queue as well. And that is where the audit queue comes in. This is how, in the result, if you see, this is how the result of a particular output plugins look like. So what you have is, you have a test class. Test class specifies that this is the test. This test belongs to this particular class, and then you will give the name of the test. So let's say, as in the previous cases I've mentioned, there is a security profile plugin, so which will perform the security profile identification. So the plugin name will be security profile. That's what I'm picking as an example. So yeah, security profiles. And in the security profiles, you are checking if the SLNX policy is, so you can put the test class as SLNX policy check. And in the name, you can write something like the capabilities are not present. So let's say if the capabilities are present, what capabilities are present? So something like that. And in the end of the day, you should have some sort of result, and result should be in form of a list. So if you see in the demo plugin, it's good. So there are three variable dependent on this particular plugin. One is demo plugin, another one is the test class, and the test name. If you have these things with you, you are good to write the plugin. And yeah, then you will create a output object, something like this, which says that yes, res.container short id is the plugin result and the result that you're getting from here. So this is how your output tuple would look like. And to populate that output tuple, you will have to do something magical here, and that's completely onto you, how you want to do it and everything. But once you do it, you just have to fit that results in this particular format, basically into this particular list, which says test name is equal to good. So just populate that good result, and that's it, you are done. Once you are done with that, you just put the result in the output queue, and the framework will take care of everything. It will display that result in the GUI, it will perform the audit. But yes, for the auditing, you will have to tweak your plugin a bit so that you can write auditing in an easy fashion. So I'll talk about it in a moment. But this is how it works. So at the end of the day, at the end of the this section, if you see, there is a audit variable check happening. If the audit is enabled, then perform the audit. So you need an audit function which will take the container, which will take the output result, which will take the audit queue. And yeah, this would look something like this. This is how the signature would look like. And similar to the scan function, there is a signature of the audit function, and then you will have to perform audit check, like how do you want to compare the happy path and the bad path. So when I say happy path and bad path, so I'll take the example of the plugins which are there existing. So let's say if I talk about the security profile plugin, the security profile plugin in the SLNX policy says that the SLNX is disabled, and you want to make sure the check that SLNX is enabled. So for that, what you can do is you can perform a string literal check to make sure that the SLNX profile of a particular Docker instance are matching to what is being output by your particular scan plugin. So this is how it looks. And yeah, this is how you can write your own custom plugins. And when I say custom, that is really customizable in the sense that you can write anything that you can think for a Docker, even that is not at all linked with security at all. So you can write your own plugins out of that. And if you have an idea which you think can actually helpful for the community or the security people like me or you can definitely raise a issue for that idea. We can discuss that issue over the GitHub or something like that, and then we can plan to write that particular plugin out. I have recorded a very short demonstration through Askinema where I have demonstrated how you can build this tool from scratch, how you can use the tool in the command line interface, and then you can use it. So you can go for the CLI usage, you can actually go into that particular link and then try this out. This link is there in the GitHub repository as well, because I don't want to show the CLI interface. CLI interface for some people looks very clumsy, but I like CLI. I love CLI, so that's why I've recorded that session already in Askinema. And for the UI part, I'll be giving the demonstration here itself. So yeah, that's all about how you can write on custom plugins. Yeah, that's great. Oops, sorry for that. Now let's talk about demo. I'll reshare the content. So, so I have this DockerENT as a command running in my system already. And once you run this DockerENT in your system, uh, it will expose the services on port number 8501. And this port is already configured with the Streamlit as a server. So I'm not making change anything on top of it. So you can actually run this. If you run this, you will see a UI is very simple. Again, I'll say that I'm not a UI person. So the UI is extremely simple. You can in this drop down you can actually click and read about this particular tool more, and in the second paragraph you can see how you can use this particular tool, and then third paragraph you can see how this tool has been hosted on GitHub. And yeah, if you like it, you can drop a star into that. So in this UI, there is a left-hand side sidebar section which says that you can scan Dockers and you can scan Docker's networks. The Docker network plugin has not been incorporated in package at right now. I'm working on writing Docker network plugins, and I don't know when I'll be able to complete it. But Docker plugins are already there. So let's say if you select the Docker plugins, it will give you option to select Docker and everything. And if you scan the Docker, if you select the Docker scan network plugins, then it will give you option to pick the Docker networks. But I'll not opt for Docker networks because there is no, as I mentioned, I've not started working on the Docker network yet. Yeah. So yeah, once you click the select scan Dockers, it will give you the option of the Dockers which are running in your system right now, not the paused or anyone, which are actually in running state. So you can actually pick multiple Dockers, or you can actually pick all of them together. Now, these, as I mentioned in my during my presentation, that there are few set of plugins which comes with this tooling part of it, and these are the set of plugins. Again, you can pick any way you want, or you can actually select all of them. But once you select all of them, it will take some time because the UI application runs on a single process. So it will take some time to execute all the plugins. But yes, in command line, you can specify the number of processes that you want to run on. So usual recommended way is to run on three processes that I've test benchmarked it on. With the three processes, it works really great. Yeah, and then you can pick if you want to audit results or not. Definitely, or we all want to audit the result because we don't want to see the long information for the results. So auditing is definitely great. Now you can perform the start button. Once you perform the start, it will take its own sweet time to run because there are 4 instances of Docker running in my system, and then for all 4 instances, it will run around 8 plugins. So it's like 8 times 4 computation that will happen, and you can track the process here. The progress bar is going. Let's count 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, it's done. So as soon as the scan is complete, you can see there are 2 sections. One is raw JSON report, and one is the audit JSON report. I'll talk about the report. I'll go through the report one by one. But this is how it looks like. You can download the report for the later use, and the same is with the audit report. Now, if you see, This is how it looks like. So in this particular Docker instance, naming this, there is no user history identified. That's why it's coming out to be blank. There are few file system which says that every the directory is world writable. The var temp dev shm mq acpi informwig, they are world writable by root, and these are the checks basically from the file info endpoint, and this is for the file mount results. And then you can actually see if there is a presence of plain text, but you would definitely not want to go into the technical details of the information, because information, there is a lot of info out there. So you'll have to basically check on the audit. I'll talk about the audit results in a go. Yeah, in the proc info, you see that there is a process running. Proc info says that the what process is running inside the Docker. Usually one process runs inside the Docker, but at times I've seen that developers running multiple processes inside the Docker. It's one plugin. SLNX says that there is no SLNX profile set, and that profile is set to null. There are capabilities present, and the capability says that caps admin is present, and all those things. The container is not privileged. That's really good. But I intentionally created one container as privileged. I'm trying to see which container was that. Um, okay, so this particular plugin for this particular Docker says that there is a presence of command which says that who am I. The developer actually went inside this Docker and ran this particular command. So yeah, we were able to capture that as well. So yeah, this is how it looks like. This is how the results look like, but I will not definitely go into the results in complete. But yeah, for us the audit part is important, because audit will simplify the results for us. We don't have to worry about the every messy result that comes from the raw report. But yeah, in audit report, if you see, it says that the file system info, I'll talk about the format in a go, but it says that file info plugin says that there is a warning, and the warning description is here, and you can read about the description. And there are a lot of things coming in. So one I'll try to read out is that the file system info says that warning, there is a read write mount available, password is identified in config file. This has been intentional, so this I've put in. So if you see, the audit results is actually big, so this actually alarms you out. The audit result for security profile says that no APAM profile found, SLNX is disabled, container is privileged. So yeah, this is how it looks, and it is segregated according to the Docker instances. So this is for the Docker, this is for Docker E7, and yeah. So if you see, the audit results have been segregated according to the Docker, so you don't have to worry about the yeah. Yeah, so this is how the results look like. Now I'll go back to the presentation. I'll reshare it. So yeah, this is how this is how easy is to use this DockerENT tool. And oops, sorry. And yeah, this is the format of audit results. So audit results says it comes as a CSV notation. First part says that there is a plugin name as user info, and there is a alert type says that warning. There could be information or like low level severity issues identified, and at the end of the day, it will give that description. So at the end of the field, it will have a description saying, oh yes, there is a user, and the user is running as root. So yeah, that's how the audit looks like. Yeah. So I see this tool really growing in future, because I have not during my pen testing experience, I've never identified any tool which is capable of doing all those things. And usually doing this thing through automation was a heavy duty task. Sorry, because uh, you usually run those tools, basically scripts on all the running instances, and this is actually a hectic task, and you have to analyze, you have to format according to the stakeholder outputs and all those things. So that's why really see this tool growing, because that's the only open source tool in the market. I've seen people selling false products in organization, because this is how they work on their businesses. But yeah, so in future, I want to incorporate a suggestion for remediation. So if you see right now, DockerENT point out the issues, but it doesn't point out how you can actually remediate that particular issue. So I want to incorporate that in my plugin. I want to make it a better UI. I'm not or not good at all on this side, but I will definitely try to learn and then build a better UI. and more functional and responsive UI. Parallel processing I want to include in the UI as well, because right now it's not in parallel processing mode. And this is where I need your help. You can come up and help me out building this tool and making container runtime more secure. Support from community, that's what I'm looking for. Simplified way of plugin creation, that's a really far version of this particular goal. So if you see right now, even if you have to write your own plugin, you have to write a Python file and then put the Python file in the particular plugin directory, and then you'll have to work on it. So I want a simplified way of plugin creation where you can actually select that if you want to run a command inside a running container, what command that you should run, and that command you will take the input from the UI itself, and then you can write your own custom plugin from the UI. So that's what I look this tool going into. Docker network monitoring, it has, I mean, I've started working on it, but I've not built any plugin for Docker network monitoring. That's one thing. As I mentioned, there is no parallel processing. I want to include parallel processing as well. And yeah, I want to popularize this tool because I see a good scope of this particular tool. Yes. So that's all about DockerENT I have for today. And this is the link to the GitHub repo, or you can simply search on Google DockerENT, and it will take you to the repository. In the repository, you will see how you can write. You will get every single detail about this presentation that I talked about in the repository. Even the presentation is included in the repository, so that's the bonus. You can go and check it out. If you like anything about the tool or anything about this presentation, so definitely feel I mean contribute by dropping in a star, because that will help me gain some initial attraction. And your support is required to build this tool. You can raise issues to how you can write in custom. What do you think can be a possible plugin that you can think can be leveraged, used by a lot of people? So yeah, definitely that's where I need your help in. I need the expertise of DevOps people, DevSecOps people to build this tool out. So yeah, that's all about it. I'm open for the questions. So yeah, thank you.
Well,
Let's
Rohit, thanks a lot for your time in the presentation. Everybody, you
thank
can
you.
go ahead and ask some questions now. We have spare time.
So we don't have any questions, or like the
Not at the
presentation
moment,
went
but we
on.
have more time, Rohit. So if you want to maybe show another demo of the tool, maybe it can be interesting for the participants.
So
Okay. Yep, sure. I'll try to do that.
before we choose
So,
another demo, I just want to update everyone that track A is still on, and you can, at the end of this presentation, you can go and jump to track A. We still have another session there. We have a planned quiz, and we have a final or finishing keynote or closing keynote. So feel free when this is done to go there.
Thanks, Rohit.
okay. So I'll just give a demonstration on the CLI part of it. Give me 1 second. Okay. Let me know if you can see my screen again. Is it visible now?
It is.
Okay, so as I mentioned in the previous case that you can run the DockerENT from the command line as well. And this is how it looks like. Basically, these are the options which are present in there. You can simply, the best and easiest way to run is like DockerENT. You can simply run, do -d. -d will perform the scan on all the networks, create an output file for you, and create an audit file for you as well. But to enable auditing, you have to give -a flag, as you can see here. So yeah, but in the command line, the beauty comes into picture when you can actually parallelize things for you. So in the in the UI, it was not possible, but in the command line, you can specify the number of processes. So let's say if I pick the 4 processes and I just want to perform the scan on the containers, which is Docker. So I'll just give the -d option and simply run it. You will see the lot of logs coming in. Don't get scared of the logs. But yeah, I'm using the rich interface. So rich interface is really beautiful when it comes to logging. It will start performing scan. The similar thing that used to happen in the UI will happen on the command line interface. Now the beauty comes into picture that in the command line interface, at times it is possible that in the QA environment, you don't have access to the web front end, web application. The firewall is blocking rules for accessing that particular web port. Now what you can do is you can run the same tool in the command line. Running this tool is really simple. The way you were running it for web application with -w, you can run it with -d option, and that's it. And once you do that, it's really easy, and it will perform set of checks, and it's taking some time, and you can track the progress of all the plugins here in the UI, in the CLI. So that is possible. Once the scan is complete, you will get the details in out.json and out.html file as well. So yeah, this is how easy to run it in the command line interface. So yes,
That's great. So again, thanks a lot for the presentation and the tool. I myself will download it after the presentation. So thank you for sharing. If anybody has questions now, we will have one more minute for you guys to ask. If not, we will finish this session. Okay, so again, thanks a lot, Rohit, for the session about DockerENT. And the next presentation that we will have is on track A, so you guys can go ahead and join. This will be the final presentation for this track.
Thank you very much, Oz and Rohit. Oz,